Hi all, I hope you guys have written answer to today's question. Our topic for today is history from GS1. Let's not waste much of our time and start discussing the question and what we are going to do when we are encountering such questions for the first time in mains. Obviously, practice is a must, and that's why whenever you write your mains answer, get it evaluated on the platform of Collector Babu. Now the question is visible on the screen. Let's take a while to read the question and thoroughly analyze it, what we are going to write in such questions. Okay? The first question is, why did the armies of British East India Company, mostly composed of Indian soldiers, win consistently against the more numerous and better equipped armies of the then Indian rulers? Give reason. Well, there are considerably flaws in some part of the question. For example, yes, the armies of the Indian rulers were definitely more numerous, but were it better equipped compared to British East India Company? No, not really. So let us discuss the question. So, what are we going to write in this question? Firstly, we have to start by writing an introduction. We will give some insight into the British East India Company, that yes, they were a trading enterprise, but they also formed a formidable military force and which had repeatedly defeated the larger and better equipped armies of the Indian rulers. Okay. And funnily enough, because it is written in the question only, it was mostly composed of the Indian soldiers. You can write that ironically, these victories were primarily achieved using Indian sepoys under the British command. Okay, so what will we be writing? You are supposed to write the reasons for the same. A statement has been given. You have analyzed in short the statement in your introduction part. Then in the next part, you're supposed to give the reasons because it is explicitly asking give reasons. So in the heading part of your body, just write reasons for the same, because again you cannot write such long sentences because you have used that in introduction itself. So what were the reasons? One was definitely superior military organization and discipline, again which I told you that they have defeated the better equipped armies of the Indian ruler. That is not exactly true. Obviously, they were numerous but not better equipped in terms of the military prowess that the British army, the British East India Company's army had. So, here you will give the reason for the same, and the first is that they had superior military organization, they had better discipline, they had better commander in generals. Okay, obviously, which was exposed even during the revolt of 1857. You can throw in plenty of names, for example, Campbell, Hugh Groves. Okay, uh, so these are some of the arguments which you are going to use. Then you have to talk about what were the standard operating procedures that made them better for dealing with such, for better colonizing India, to say the least. Then you're going to write that obviously they had regular drilling sessions, and they had standard equipment, and there was a strict discipline which gave British led troops a significant advantage. Again, this is not only about military power, this is also about the way the East India Company worked and served and the incentives they provided to their soldiers. Okay, for example, East India Company was a trading company. The intention was to generate as much benefit for the shareholders as it could. So with that motivation in mind, the military was able to conquer and achieve its task because it was its mandate. Now, we will talk about there was advanced military technology. For example, they had better navy and they had spent a lot to revive their navy. And the British also introduced muskets and bayonets, also various artillery innovation, and there was a regular infantry session. So all these enabled the army to be better equipped to deal with situation which would result in colonization. And then you'll talk about how Indian armies were outdated and they used traditional warfare methods such as cavalry charges, which were obviously ineffective against disciplined firepower. Now, superior leadership, again, which I talked about the leadership strategy of the British commander in generals. Then, political disunity and diplomacy. Again, this becomes a very important driving force. Obviously, in some parts, there were good and better equipped armies. For example, Tipu Sultan's army was very good, but again, there was no unity um, between Marathas or the Nizams of the Hyderabad's. Okay, so there was no unity, which again resulted in British easily conquering those parts. So Indian rulers were often divided and engaged in constant infighting. Okay, which failed them to form an alliance and make up a united front against the British. Now, the British effectively used diplomacy and treaties, for example, subsidiary alliance and doctrine of lapse, to weaken the Indian states, and the Indian states fell for it. Again, even the Indian states did not have a good foreign policy vision. They were not very adept with what was happening in and around the world, except for Tipu Sultan or maybe a handful of other rulers. There were none who were interested in learning about the foreign policy and how imperialism has been affecting other colonies, okay, or colonialism, or the theories of economy which has motivated the British and other colonial power to look for colonies abroad. And then uh, again, they used this to play one ruler against another, which ensured that the Indian forces never combined against the British. The third you can give the argument as the argument is that the logistic were also efficient because the British had a very well organized supply chain for weapon, food, and medical aid, which ensured that the troops always remained battle ready, right? And also, they had the financial backing from the trade revenues, especially after the gaining control of Bengal in 1757, allowing them to sustain long wars, right? And you'll also talk about the naval power, which I mentioned earlier, and the control of trade. Obviously, the arguments we have discussed till now are sufficient. If you want, you can argue more. For example, you can use that key victories like Plassey and Buxar. It actually made Indian rulers hesitant and it made them wary of rising in arms against the British rule. So the fear factor was used as a propaganda, a tool of diplomacy, which created an image of invincibility. Again, you might have used this term when you're talking about the revolt of 1857, because there was this image that British are invincible. Certain factors took place during the 1857, which led to the collapse and shattering of this image. So we have completed the answer. We have argued what could be the possible reasons. We have given certain examples. This suffices the question. This answers the question. This answers the question. Now, you have to write a conclusion because your answer will not be considered to be complete unless and until you write answer you write conclusion and you have to summarize it in case of such questions. For example, you will reiterate that yes, the Indians definitely had larger armies, the Indian definitely had more numerous armies, but because there were strategic mistakes at the hand of the Indian rulers which led to British colonizing the Indian subcontinent. And I think that answers the question fairly well. Let us move on to the second question, which is about the women's question. Okay. The women's question arose in the modern India as a part of the 19th century social reform movement. What are the major issues and debates concerning movement in that period? Basically, it is talking about the social reform movement, which were particularly pivoted on the women issue. So, you have to talk about the major issues and debates. What were the major issues during those time? Sati, widow remarriage, Kulinism, women education, political participation was not a question back in 19th century, but these were some of the major questions. Even parda system was questioned, and even the age of consent bill was brought about. So these were some of the questions that arose with respect to the women's question in the modern Indian history, especially the 19th century social reform period. There are some important names like B.M. Malabari, Rajaram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, whose name you have to definitely mention when you're writing question on the women issue in the modern Indian history. Okay, so let us discuss the question. What are you supposed to write? Obviously, you are supposed to write the major issues and debate. It is very clearly given in the question. Okay, so there's nothing hidden which you have to unravel. It's straight away just mentioned in the question. So, obviously, the 19th century was a transformative period. 19th century was the transformative period in India, which was marked by significant social reforms under the British rule. Reformers actively challenged discriminatory practices such as sati, child marriage, restrictions on women education, prohibition of widow remarriage, etc. These movements laid the foundation for subsequent women's right advancement in India. Okay, so obviously, what are you going to write? You are going to write about the issues and debates. Obviously, women's education was an issue. So, the necessity of women's education became a major point of debate. Pioneering efforts were led by the establishment of institutes like the Bethune College, Bethune School, by Elliot Drinkwater Bethune. Then, discussions also revolved around the curriculum design, the inclusion of subjects like philosophy and science, the choice of language, etc. And also reformers like Jyotiba Phule and Savitri Phule, they also played a crucial role in promoting education for girls, especially among the lower castes. Then, obviously, the issue of child marriage. Here, Rajaram Mohan Roy and B.M. Malabari, they were a prominent figure to increase the marriageable age for girls. Then again, age of consent bill was passed 1891 to raise the minimum age for marriage. The debates were often juxtaposed with traditional practices like early marriage in Manusmriti, etc., with the modern and ethical arguments. So, the third point was widow remarriage. Here, the main figure is Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and how his pioneering efforts led to the enactment of Hindu Widows Remarriage Act 1956. Okay, and the point was to remove the social stigma which is attached to widow remarriage. Then abolition of sati. Here again Rajaram Mohan Roy was the leading figure. You will talk about even the prominent role played by William Bentinck, who officially banned sati in British India. And you will definitely talk about the property right, because again Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar demanded that women should be given inheritance right, especially widows. So Hindu Widow Remarriage Act also and other subsequent reforms talked about the property rights and sparked further legal discussion. Then you can talk about overall status of women, which were part of the debate. The very important debate and case here will be the contribution of Pandit Ramabai, who worked towards women upliftment and founded the Sharda Sadan, a home for destitute women, which was instrumental in social reform. We'll talk about organizations like Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, and how they had this agenda to uplift the status of women. Well, if you write this much, this definitely answers the question, but will it give you that extra edge? I think not. So, what are you supposed to do to gain that extra edge? See, you can actually talk about some of the criticisms that arose against this women issue wala movement. What are you supposed to write? You will write both the points, some progressive points and some conservative points. For some conservative points, you can talk about like what was Bal Gangadhar Tilak's viewpoint against the age of consent bill, that the British should not get the power to legislate on traditional matters. If there should be a change, it should come from within the community. So you can talk about that point again, arguing for the other side. And then even the second progressive point to say the least, you can talk about how mostly maybe 90-95% of the movement was led by men. There was absence of leadership from the women community themselves, and it was only later that they became part of the dialogue. For example, Sarlaben Chodrain or even Sarojini Naidu, etc., they came on pretty late in the discourse centered around women issue. Then what else can you do? You can make a hub and spoke diagram, and you can talk about the major later organizations that worked for women issues and what were their achievements. For example, um, you can talk about the Sarda Act, you can talk about various property act that women actively campaigned for. You can talk about some organizations like Bharati Sri Mahamandal, All India Women Conference by Margaret Cousins, etc. So if you are able to write all these, definitely you will get much better marks than if you're just writing that much. But again, obviously you have to fulfill the demand of the question. You cannot just keep on doing value addition if you don't write what the question has actually demanded. And in the end, we can just conclude by saying that the 19th century social reform movement critically examined oppressive customs against women, paving way for the future feminist and social justice movement in India. That is enough. Let's go on to the third and the last question for the day, which is centered around the tribal issue. Okay, so what is the question? The question is, how did colonial rule affect the tribals in India, and what was the tribal response to the colonial oppression? What was the tribal response to the colonial oppression? See, obviously you are going to write about various mutinies from coal mutiny, Santhal rebellion, or any other rebellion you can talk about. You will write about it. Better still, make a map and mark important revolt sites in the colonial India relating to tribal response to colonial oppression. This you will have to do if you want that extra marks. If you don't, then, well, fairly writing the answer would also suffice. So, what are you going to do to bring that extra edge? Obviously, you will write about the impact, you will write about the response, but also not only in terms of revolts and rebellion, but there was also this response that in order to um, immune themselves or shield themselves from the colonial oppression, they took to large scale conversion to protect their own interest, which was also true because a large majority of tribals converted to Christianity. So please do not forget to mention this point as well. Now, give a small introduction that colonial rule had profoundly impacted all sections of the society, and the tribals were no exception. The British, they were driven by economic interest. They introduced several policies that disrupted the traditional lifestyle, economy, social structure of the tribal communities. Right. Now, talk about the impact of colonial rule. So, what is the impact? What was the impact of colonial rule? First, the land revenue policies. Okay, we'll talk about the introduction of permanent settlement in tribal areas of the Bengal led to abolition of the customary communal and land ownership system. Okay, again, land were introduced to zamindar. It led to inroads for the money lenders, okay, or the outsiders, which were called dicus, and landlords, which led to economic exploitation of the tribals. And the British also introduced the cash based market economy, which increased the dependency of the tribals on middlemen. And also the legal system, the new legal system replaced the traditional justice mechanism, and further, this step alienated tribals from their customary rights. Now you'll talk about the forest policy, India Forest Act of 1865, forest policy of 1884. Okay, you will talk about excluded area and the partially excluded areas, and how there were restriction on shifting cultivation, hunting, and forest became a state subject, and it became state resources. Tribals no longer had access to forest, which they obviously had a symbiotic relationship with. Now we'll talk about advent of Christian missionaries, which I told you to definitely write it. Don't forget. And the missionary, they were perceived as the representative of foreign rule. They reformed and attempted to reform tribal customs and religious practices. Again, the fact that missionary were not only bad, they were obviously good in various sense. For example, they provided certain tribals with the basic health and sanitation education, and also they provided them with resources to sustain themselves. So obviously they created social tension and resistance, but not always in a bad way. How, what was the tribal resistance? Obviously talk about the coal rebellion, which was led by Buddha Bhagat, but make a map, mention like 5 or 6 of the tribal rebellions and write about two, just two, because you don't have a lot of time to write and explain each and every revolt. Then definitely you have to talk about Santhal revolt, which was led by Sidhu and Kanu brother, Birsa Munda led by Birsa Munda, and you can talk about what were the other impact. For example, Tenancy Act of 1904 was passed in response to the revolt led by Birsa Munda. We'll talk about later Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act was passed, etc. How are you going to conclude this question? Obviously, you can conclude by saying that there was this persistent tension by the tribal communities, persistent resistance by tribal communities, forced the British government and the mainstream Indian political parties to acknowledge their concerns. That being said, you also have to take this question to the post independence domain. How, even after gaining independence, the tribals' rights were not recognized. And it was only like in 2006, with the passage of FRA, Forest Rights Act, that their rights was ultimately, and their relationship, mutual symbiotic relationship with forest, was ultimately recognized. So it took even the Indian government, made by its own people, to take a long time to recognize the efforts of the tribals. You can conclude in this direction, and that ends our discussion for today. Have a nice day. Bye bye. Take care.